SGA's primary defender for the NBA Finals is Andrew Nembhard, and when you know the history of these two,
Like, I played against Andrew when I was 9 years old.
it makes the matchup even more interesting, particularly when Nembhard's able to do stuff like this on the offensive side of the floor. Now, the most common matchup you're going to see between the Canadian teammates is obviously on OKC's offense, where Nembhard isn't going to leave SGA's side at any point for any reason. Look at these two back-to-back plays down the stretch of game one. Nembhard doesn't even look like he wants to help. He just sticks by SGA, holds on to him, wants to play in that passing lane and make SGA use energy if he wants the ball. And it's tiring. SGA uses a lot of energy on the court, and that extra little bit of pressure reduces the amount of possessions SGA has and puts the pressure back on the rest of the OKC members to win the game, which they were unable to do in game one. In the last 7.5 minutes of play, every single basket, except for these two free throws, were directly created by SGA himself. Now, I haven't shown you this play before, but it looks pretty similar, right? Nembhard guarding SGA all the way down the floor. But in this play, rather than just standing around and conserving energy, SGA sets a very simple screen. And because Nembhard is unwilling to swap off him, Halliburton gets pinned, and it's the easiest bucket of the entire game for Wallace. Unsurprisingly though, when the MVP has the ball in his hands is when OKC look the best, and that leaves a lot of responsibility on Nembhard, particularly in these pick and roll situations. And you can see the game plan from Indiana and the interesting interaction that plays out here. Halliburton's the best at this, but they've been instructed to show high above their player coming to set a screen, and Nembhard's role is to go over that screen and follow and get back in front of SGA before the help defender recovers to his man. Now you can see in these two plays here, Wallace and Holmgren feel their player going high, so they do the thing where they cut underneath and they now set a screen on the other side of SGA. SGA doesn't use this screen on either of these, he attacks the help defender on the other side and then kicks it back to the open man, which does create two good looks here for OKC, but it does completely shut down the ability for SGA to have the ball in his hands. However, these two are when SGA made a move immediately. When he hesitated and took his time, things became a lot more difficult for Indiana. His teammates were sticking the screen, and you can see what it does to Halliburton here. He shows, like we saw in that previous play, but because Wallace sticks around, he has to get back under Wallace, otherwise Wallace is just going to roll straight towards the basket and catch the ball with momentum. So you can see Halliburton does that. He drops back underneath to prevent this, and this means SJ is able to get over the screen with Nembhard following him. And now we're in a very different situation. Halliburton's now playing drop coverage on SGA, who now can get some momentum towards the basket. And this is much more touch and go for the defense. Halliburton has to decide, when do I leave guarding SGA to go back to Wallace? And this is based on when he thinks Nembhard is in a position to catch up. You can see here he leaves a little bit early and SGA actually gets some momentum towards the basket. Luckily on this play, Siakam is there for the block. But you can see on this other play, Obi Toppin here does show he contains SGA initially, and Nembhard is able to get back in front of SGA. SGA manages to draw the foul because he's got a bit too much momentum to the basket, but this here is about as close as you're going to get to a pick and roll played almost perfectly from both the offense and the defense. And this isn't always easy to do. Look at this play here. Obi Toppin, who I just showed you doing a pretty decent job, is caught lagging behind Dort. He's unable to show early, and by the time he is trying to show, SJ is able to make his move, and because Toppin's caught in transition from being behind the screen to trying to go above it, there's this gap in between Dort and Toppin, which SJ is able to split, attack the basket. In Indiana, they don't want SJ to score. 3 help defenders come over and he kicks it out to an open shot. Similarly on this play, Siakam doesn't even try and show with Caruso coming up to set the screen, which I think gets communicated because it's the only time Nembhard tries to go under the player setting the pick. Siakam sidesteps here rather than just trying to contain and let Nembhard get back in front. SJ is able to split the defense. This time there's no help and he's able to finish nicely at the basket. Really, we should appreciate, though, the movement Nembhard makes here. Look how quick he is to catch up here, and he does actually make this a difficult shot for SGA still. And then to top it up, we end up with this play here. Nembhard really wrestling with SGA, doesn't want the MVP getting the ball. MVP does get the ball, and then we end up in this one-on-one ISO situation. No screens like here, like we saw in the other plays, and Nembhard is able to stay in front of him. And yes, SGA gets to his spot for the pull-up, But look at Nembhard's hands here. He's able to swipe down on the ball. And if you've played basketball before, you know that yes, you can still get the shot up when this happens, but your control of the basketball is not going to be as good as when you do a nice fluid shooting action. The shot misses, which allows Halliburton to capitalize on the other end. And I'm really looking forward to see how this matchup continues to play out. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe.